My name is Mary. I'm one of the continence nurse specialists that work with the Bladder and Bowel Foundation. The Bladder and Bowel Foundation is a UK-wide charity and it takes calls from people with bladder and bowel problems. Calls to the helpline vary, and the helpline is available to callers on an answer phone service 24 hours a day with a nurse callback, which can happen any time between Monday and Friday between the hours of 9 to 5, and occasionally calls are taken at weekends. And they're not specific to any age group. They can actually be from any person of any age, because bladder and bowel conditions affect everybody, anywhere, at any time. 1% of these calls were actually categorised in the age group of the under 20s. However, not everybody that calls the helpline will offer their age. The joy of the helpline is that it is a totally confidential helpline, so callers always have the opportunity to omit both their name and age, and this could be significant in this age group of people. We do know, however, that 1% of those callers were under 20, but this could of course be more. What we like to think is that any caller that rings the helpline will get the support and advice they need for the condition that they're actually worried about. Now, in certain age groups of people, these call differences will be quite considerable. Calls from younger people may be specific to their lifestyle at that moment, and they may be struggling with lots of social things that they're concerned about to do with bladder and bowel control.
When I was about 16, I first noticed that I started suffering with stress and urge urinary incontinence, and basically the things that made me notice it was that when I did things like exercise, I would leak. Even sometimes when I sneezed really hard, it would come out. It was just really embarrassing, and it also got to the point where if I needed to go to the toilet, I would have to go there and then. I just couldn't hold it in. I would literally put my key in the door to leave the house, and then I'd have to go back in again. It was quite bad. I definitely had issues with talking to people about it. It affected my life in quite a lot of ways, because when I was at college, I did a drama course which was very active, and whenever I did a lot of activity, it would happen. I was wearing pads to try and sort of cover it up, and I just didn't really think much of it. And then when I did begin thinking about it, I thought, I can't talk to anyone about this, it's too embarrassing. Couldn't talk to my friends, anybody really. I just felt like I was the only person in the world with this problem, and I felt alone. In the end, when I was about 19, I decided to seek help. I was still too embarrassed really to go to a doctor or anything, so I looked up online the Bladder and Bowel Foundation, and realised that they could send me to a specialist who would help. So I did end up going to see someone after they'd made me feel comfortable. I talked to a nurse on the phone about it, and she made me feel confident enough to go. And basically, when I went, they offered me surgery, but I decided against that, and they thought my case wasn't quite serious enough to do that in the end. So I just was given exercises to do, and in the end, it's definitely helped me a lot and changed my life.
It's never an easy topic to discuss, and in certain areas it's expected, sadly so, and society does expect incontinence to be an issue for certain age groups, i.e. the elderly. This is not the case.
From about the age of 4, I can remember having bad irritable bowels. I was worried about leaving my mum. It caused me to have a lot of stress and a lack of control over my bowels. To be honest, I didn't really know a lot about it, but I was in hospital having various blood tests done, testing me on various different things. At secondary school, it was worse. I had very lack of control over it to start with in year 7, due to being worried about obviously my problem. It brought me down on my coursework and in my lessons.
In a younger person, those symptoms may well be influenced, for instance, their ability to actively get involved in social interaction with their peers. They may, for instance, be at college, or they may actively be avoiding going out to parties, all the things that young people would want to do on an everyday basis. Bladder and bowel control is accepted as normal in all of us, and we only really get anxious or concerned about it should it suddenly become a problem for us. In a lot of us, and a bigger majority than most of us would think, that does become a problem. A simple condition, for instance, like a urinary tract infection, may, for some reason, tip the balance of urinary control in anybody of any age. So going into an exercise regime, going out to have fun, for instance, playing basketball, doing anything that a young person in particular might like to do, dancing is a classic, then there may be sudden loss of control from the bladder. That's never an easy thing to do. If you're out dancing, it's not a nice feeling to have urine running down your leg. None of this is age-related, and there may purely be a simple reason why that is happening. As I said, it could be a urinary problem. It could be that the pelvic floor needs looking at. It could be that it's an ongoing problem that hasn't been investigated in earlier life. And all of these things can be discussed privately, confidentially, over the helpline with a nurse who will guide the person with the symptoms to the right source to find out whether there is anything that can actively be done to maintain better control, to increase a better lifestyle.
Stephen Miles, clinical nurse specialist, bladder and bowel. So it's really just to come to talk to you about bladder and bowel problems. Getting older doesn't mean getting incontinent. It doesn't follow. The risk increases. When you think about your muscle tone now, when you're about 70 years of age, your muscle tone, you won't have a six-pack when you're 70. You may do, but generally you won't. But generally, muscle tone, pelvic floor, which is what helps us to keep continent, is not as good when we're older. When we learn toileting, we learn to hold on. So we learn to be continent. So basically, we all were incontinent when we came into this world. Generally, it's older age that it can be a problem, but any one of you can, at any time, have a bladder problem. The whole thing with incontinence, it's the stigma attached to it. Can you imagine fecal incontinence? Because it's not only the leakage, there's a smell that goes with it. I don't think it takes a lot to really understand how much a problem, that must be to people. Where would you think in the first instance you would feel more comfortable going if you were having a problem?
Doctor.
Be the doctors first. And hopefully they would be able to signpost you. They would do the simple things first, like checking for an infection and all the rest. If you had a problem, would you be able to share it with your boyfriend or girlfriend or other friends?
I used to have really bad water infections, and then I got an E. coli infection. And everyone here knows I had it, my boyfriend knows. It's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Do you think incontinence would affect a sexual relationship?
If they knew that you wouldn't be so embarrassed if we didn't know and then it happened, I'd die of embarrassment. I'd probably run away crying.
What happens is people don't go out, or especially if they need to know where the toilet is all the time, they go shopping in a certain way, because if I go to Marks, I know there's a toilet there. Then I've got enough time to go somewhere else. It really controls people's lives, and I've talked to older people, we were talking about holidays, they said we don't go on holiday because we don't know where the toilets are. We appeal for everyone. This is how much, and you've made some very good points, how much it affects people's lives. And it really is so important that instead of that happening, people seek help. Has anyone here ever had to use pads for leakage?
I had my water infection and that, because I'd think I need toilet, I'm not going to go because I don't actually need one, and then I actually would leak.
Anyone heard of the Bladder and Bowel Foundation?
No.
The good thing, it does what it says. There is, yes, you've seen, there are adverts. Anyone seen? That's it, toilet in the supermarket and toilet on the beach. And I think one in the theatre as well. The Bladder and Bowel Foundation is an amalgamation. Two charities came together, and they've really got a very high profile now. They do a lot of work nationally, but also the other big thing they have, as well as lots of information, they've got a very good website, but they also have telephone helpline. If any of you, imagine any of you had a bladder problem, you weren't sure what was going on, you may come along to one of our clinics.
I just really want to stress that anybody with a problem like that should go and seek help, and there are so many ways to go about it. You don't have to go and see someone face to face straight away. It's just something that is more common than you think, and you need to go and talk to people about it because it can be solved.
when the doctors and I was doing my blood test, they gave me various leaflets on this issue, where if I'd actually took the time to do the research, I would have found it a lot more easier, because I didn't know there was actually charities out there that actually specialise in bowel problems. So I believe that if you have a problem like I've had, and I kept it to myself, when I spoke to my friends, I found it very easier to be able to come over it, where if you know that you have the problem, if you speak and get help, they know exactly what you're going through, so that you can find it easier to control within yourself.
My advice would be that you could ring the Bladder and Bowel Foundation helpline. You will have help and advice to move you forward to either a continence specialist nurse who works within your area, and we will be able to put you in touch through the continence database with the person that you could speak to, either directly or via a referral from your GP. Other ways that you could actually deal with this are using the website. The website is actually very easily accessed. It's got a lot of information and support and resources that if you are just anxious, or you don't know whether the issue is actually just around something that's really relating to yourself, or that you might think other people are all suffering and therefore you're not finding out whether the symptoms that you're actually experiencing are actually abnormal. It could be that they're perfectly normal. There are things on the website which talk about accessing toilets, for instance. There is a just can't wait card for people that might need to access a toilet in a hurry. It's becoming much more widely used and well known across society, and it might just make the difference to you worrying about getting to a toilet on time.
I found it very hard to speak to someone at school. It took me a year for me to speak to my headmaster about it, who then gave me a card that allowed me to leave lessons, but he also spoke to my teachers beforehand, so my teachers knew exactly what was happening and didn't have to question me if I just had to get up and leave the room.
Most importantly, it's actively thinking that nobody needs to suffer long term about bladder or bowel control. There may well be a lot of help out there that you're not actually seeking or finding out about. And it's very common to actually ignore this, particularly in a younger age group. These things, if they are related to a medical condition, aren't necessarily going to go away. And the sooner that you actually act on getting the right advice and the right support from the right area of expertise, the better off you will be in actively managing this into later and latter life.